Hello everyone, Laszlo from thewanderinginvestor.com. So today I am in beautiful Budapest with Laszlo, my immigration specialist. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Laszlo has been in the business of immigration for the past 29 years approximately.
Yeah, something like that.
Almost 3 decades. And today we're going to be discussing all the island citizenship. So the passports that one can buy legally in the Caribbean and also in the South Pacific. So there are a few programs: Dominica, St. Lucia, Antigua, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, and Vanuatu. They all have their pros and cons, but generally I'd like to discuss with you, Laszlo, why are people getting second passports?
There are many reasons for that, and usually the need is directed by personal preferences. Let me give you a quite important consideration, which is visa-free travel to many countries. South Africans, if they have, for example, their children studying in the United Kingdom, they need a visa to go to the United Kingdom. And then they have to stand in a queue, and if somehow the consular officer has a bad morning, they might be refused, even though they have the money, so they are not a risk at all for immigration reasons. No, that is not the case. But unfortunately, they have to apply. If they get a citizenship from those 6 countries which you mentioned, then the UK visa-free travel is permitted with Ireland and with other countries. So all in all, that is one important consideration, how to have visa-free travel the same way as for a business person. Business opportunity comes up, and then he has to get on the plane and he has to file to Europe, let's put it this way. And then what happens? He has to apply for visa. What if it doesn't come? These are very important considerations if you are running a business, that you want international free movement as much as it can be in today's world.
Yeah, I understand. When I lived in South Africa, I remember my South African friends always, when they had to do their Schengen renewal visa, it was always a bit of a nightmare from a paperwork point of view in terms of timelines, always a bit of stress. All the embassies had different paperwork. It really wasn't a pleasant experience for any of them.
That is true. Second possible advantage is that those are small island states. I mean, Vanuatu has 180,000 people, Dominica, St. Lucia around 100,000. They are not a problem for anybody in the world. So if you are showing your passport, people are just simply smiling that I never heard about that country, which means that it's not a problem. There are no controversies that you are tied to that country. If you become, let's say, that's a long topic, citizen of the United States, that could create bad feelings in certain parts of the world. But then those islands are very, very neutral. They do not care about international relations, international problems. They're just living their own quiet life.
And I think there's a lot to be said about this, especially in a world with increasing tensions between various world powers. Having the passport of a little, neutral, insignificant country is becoming better than having the passport of a large, powerful country when traveling around.
Life is definitely different in those countries than what we are used to. When I started to travel to those small countries, I started to look, to watch how the society goes, how a small country with that small population should pay for so many government services, because you should have a political system, you should have a health system, and so on and so on. And it is much less people who are paying for that. So one question which very often comes up: why those countries are doing this kind of, why are they offering citizenship for a certain amount of cash or donation to the government or for a property investment? It's very, very simple. They need the money, and this is money which they can spend on their own country. Let me give you an example for Vanuatu, which is in the Pacific Ocean. Vanuatu gets hit by a very serious hurricane every 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
And then when so many things are destroyed and the GDP of Vanuatu is not that big, then where would they get the money for reconstruction? Is it insurance coming out? Insurance is also coming from the same country. So if property is destroyed, it's destroyed. Should they beg going to Australia and to the European Union for aid? No. Rather, the European Union said that, okay, let us give visa-free travel possibility to Vanuatu citizens, which is a kind of a source of income for the government. A single applicant, for example, just to give you an indication, has to pay 130,000 US dollars to get the citizenship. It's a donation, and it basically includes every cost to obtain the citizenship. And for that amount of money, the country is very happy. And when unfortunate things would happen in the future, at least they have the cash in the treasury with which they can really rebuild, because this is an ongoing process. The Caribbean usually have it, each Caribbean country usually 10 or 15 years. So Caribbean is a little bit better off financially or weather-wise, but that is always a constant consideration of where to get the money for the reconstruction and rebuilding of the country if something bad happens.
Yeah, because I mean they're very dependent on just tourism and sales of citizenships. That's where most of their income comes from. Especially
now where the tourism income decreased by 80, 90, 95%. And what I mean, then the foreign exchange is needed, because then they have to import for the local population goods, food, and so on and so on. Then this is the income which kept them alive, and that is why on a medium-term basis, on a long-term basis, 10 or 15 years, we do not know what would happen. Yeah. That the possibility will be open for open-minded people to see the advantages and to participate in these citizenship programs.
Yeah, because in mass media we always see the negative side. Oh, it's criminals doing this, etc., blah blah blah. But the reality, one, it's like you say, it's helping the country, and two, there are very stringent compliance processes to be able to obtain the citizenship. It's a fair amount of paperwork.
That is
a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, a lot of paperwork, which in a sense is a disadvantage, because then every client has to work hard to get the documentation in order. Obviously, as we are consultants, we are helping clients to tell what exactly is needed, and we are helping the collection proceed. But the other hand, because one of the most, if not the most important document is the police no criminal record certificate, whatever way it is called in each country, which shows that the person has no criminal background. That is in a sense good, because these programs cannot be so easily tainted by criminals jumping into the system. Sure. So the governments are checking them, and many of these countries are employing outside investigative agencies, detective agencies, which are checking the applicant's home country, or what they are saying is true or not, what about financial situation, what about information which is not in the international press, but local fellow previous policemen friends also know about that. No, this one is to avoid, because then although the outside world doesn't really see it, but we have information that that person is a criminal. And then based on the report and the recommendation of the due diligence firms which are doing it as a professional service, then those countries can refuse those people who are questionable, which means that the people who get approved would be considered very, very good and very, very white, clean persons also internationally.
So we mentioned the example of South Africans who could enjoy such passports for more freedom of travel. But what about Westerners, such as North Americans, Western Europeans? My understanding is that there is an increasing amount of this clientele obtaining such passports.
I do not want to get into politics, but after the elections in the United States, I have to say that for nearly all the market participants, the number of inquiries coming from the United States because of migration, because of additional taxes, because of less and less of liberty, privacy, and so on and so on. People they were thinking before that, okay, what can I do? Because intelligent people are trying to think in advance. What could happen in the medium-term future if we could guess about it? I think we could just simply guess about it. But at the end, now this is time for action, because then with the United States increasing, for example, tax burden very heavily, obviously people are thinking that, come on now, why should I pay that amount of money so that the governments are just simply wasting it, or big part is wasted on whatever it is? Let me think about this. Let me give you another example, which is definitely, for example, a problem for people who were born in the United States. Diplomats and their children, when they are stationed in the United States, and their children who were born there automatically become US citizens, even though that is not the intention of the parents, like for the medical tourism, which is bringing the mothers to the United States so that the children would have. No, that was not the intention. So they go to, and they are then going to their home country, and then they are going everywhere in the world. They are not coming back to the United States. And then the children wakes up to the obligation that income tax returns need to be filed after the age of 18. Although they might have no relationship whatsoever with the United States. They were just simply born there. So many people think it is a huge advantage. I mean, immigration, whether it's legal or illegal, to the United States is based on that. Yeah, that is a very valuable thing. But many Americans think that, yeah, the price to be paid for the privilege of being American now is under serious consideration.
Yeah, especially if you're wealthy. So if you're a wealthy American, a lot of wealthy Americans are obtaining second passports through services such as Laszlo's, and once they have their second passport, then they renounce U.S. citizenship and then move to a generally low tax jurisdiction and get to live a life of more freedom and less taxes in a completely legal way.
That is completely true, but I have to emphasize something. Serious tax planning is needed before anything is made, because then it's so easy to make mistakes. And like in every profession, there are good professionals, there are smooth talking, very good salesmen trying to sell whatever, whether it's good for the client or whether it's not good for the client is not really their concern. And therefore I urge everybody just to look around, really to check the matters, to talk to professionals, because yeah, if you are not careful you could also get into trouble because of the tax matters. But probably if somebody is listening or watching this video, then would realize that yes, a little bit of care is needed, like with nearly every big decision in life, with economic and social decision in life.
Yeah, it's very complex. Exit taxes, etc. You
Correct.
definitely
Yes.
need professional help, 100%. So what are the most popular programs?
The 6 countries, the 5 Caribbean ones and Vanuatu in the Pacific, I have to say they are not that much different from each other.
Okay.
The amounts are different slightly depending on the family structure. There are countries which give, let's say, a certain fixed amount for 4-member families, while the 5th member, for example, is added up additionally. So it's a quite complicated mix of how much the clients have to pay for the privilege. Also, the 5 Caribbean countries are offering property options, so that it's not the donation to the country, but also a property investment is possible. Obviously, compared to the donation, which is clear money for the government in the budget, then the property doesn't generate as much income. So all in all, first of all, the property option is usually more expensive, and also there are additional government charges of 50,000 or whatever is in that country, this specific amount, additional money for the government, so that it would be worthwhile, and it would be people would have a choice whether to do the donation route or the property route. But if you, and this is what I learned, that when I'm trying to show the possibilities and the positives and negatives, there are many people who are believers of property, and there are people who just do not want to take the hassle of owning a foreign overseas property because of the hassle of the upkeep and the taxation or whatever it is, just to keep the house in order. And therefore, first, when we start to talk with someone about the possibilities, I always try to find out whether they are against making a donation, a clear cash on the table to a government, which many people hate, by the way. So if I want to convince them that donation is a better route, no, there would be nothing out of it. Or somebody doesn't want to care about the properties and so on, and they just want a very clear transaction. Here is donation, I'm a happy citizen, give me my passport and my rights, and let's forget everything else. Then they can use that. So the motivation of the people and also their intentions, I think, are the most important one. Which country should we recommend for this? I would rather have this approach and spend there quite more time than to say Vanuatu is the best, Antigua is best, St. Kitts the best. Unfortunately, professionals in this business, because usually they are just tied to 1 or 2 countries, they are just pushing the one where they are intimate with. And it's not like a professional who, okay, what's your motivation, what you would like to achieve, what is your family construction, how many people you would like to include, what are your plans for your children, for example, which is also very important. And then when everything is taken into consideration, second thing is that, okay, the conditions are not that different, as I said, but money wise we have to calculate how much it is, and we have to give choices to the interested parties. And now I have to say that, going back to your original question, that for the 6 countries, Vanuatu seems now generating the most sales, if I can call it as a sale, because business-wise it is a sale of citizenship, although not many people love to call that, but in economic terms it is. And the speed of processing and the speed of the procedure is very, very good. in 2 months the applicants could get, and their whole family obviously. I mean, I'm talking, it's always not just the individual investor, but it's the whole family. They want to include their children, their spouse, possibly the grandparents.
Wow, in 2 months only, because typically Caribbean countries it's 6 to 7 months, 8 months.
Yes, that is correct. And now, because of the COVID crisis, they realize that they have to give the possibility of electronic filing for documents more than before. But before it was very bad, and it was like 7 months against the 2 months, and it is a no-brainer of which one should be chosen. Vanuatu doesn't have a property option though, so if somebody wants a property, that's different. People from the United States, because of the geographical nearness, usually prefer the Caribbean. Again, we have to see where they are coming from, intentions and so on, before we make a recommendation. But business-wise, in this market, Vanuatu is now becoming the leader. For example, single applicant, I think I mentioned it's 130,000, and that is it. No more fees to be paid later on. That is also a question. Should I pay later on? The only thing which you have to do every 10 years when the passport should be renewed, because then there is an expiry date obviously in every document. Then we arrange, and that takes like 2 or 3 weeks for the documents to be prepared with one form and a little bit of cost. But that is all the cash layout, nothing more.
Okay, very interesting. So not that much of a difference with some of the cheaper Caribbean options that are officially headline 100,000, but that come with a few extra fees.
I mentioned that this is a kind of a business, which means that all in all those countries are competing with each other, and price is one of the most, if not the most important consideration when somebody wants to choose the jurisdiction. And yes, also there are so many marketing ways to sell something, and one way is that yes, starting from 100,000. You cannot avoid paying 130,000 or 140,000, for example, in the case of Dominica and St. Lucia, because you have to pay the due diligence fees, you have to pay the application fee, you have to pay the local lawyers fee, you have to pay for the professional advice and the passport issuance and the courier and so on and so forth. So when you add up everything, then the prices are comparable to each other.
Okay.
So this is what we do always, that okay, if you are interested in, you want to give me, tell me how much it costs. I can't. It depends on the number of family members, their ages, because children below 12, between 12 and 18, above 18, the government charges more or less. Okay. So to get a proper quote, unfortunately we have to know the exact age of all the family members which would be included. Okay. Approximately, yeah, and that is why starting from 100,000 is a good solution, even though the total amount would be obviously higher.
Okay. So there are a lot of companies offering such services with second passports. Why should people go with your services?
One of the reasons is that we have a 29 years past in this business. And if we survive the 29 years, that implies that probably we are doing it right. And also we are not touching clients' money, and we are trying to do everything as professionally as in today's world it is possible. And that's an important consideration when we are talking about 100 and 200 or 300,000 US dollars.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money at the end. The second thing is that even though I might not be earning as much on a certain sale compared to the others, I always want to try to find the best solution for the client, for the property and for the donation and so on and so on. That's just a very simple comparison. The best, what is good for him, not for me. Maybe I have a better rate when it's a property and so on and so on. It is a little bit complicated. But at the end I always insist, and I teach my colleagues that no, okay, fair enough. Obviously, we should be paid also for our services, otherwise why should we do that? But at the end, our fees are the third or the fourth most important consideration in the whole suggestion of which one the best.
Okay, so if people are not too sure which program to go for, can they get in touch with you to discuss their options?
Definitely, I'm very happy to discuss the options very often, because people love to do, and internet is a big help at the end. They find quite a lot of information, and they start to think about one specific country. It's like with one specific property project. I can give you many examples, by the way, but that would be a long interview. And then, because we know, or we have to know obviously more about our business than somebody who's just researching the internet, then surprises could come up when we are just trying to show the other side of the coin. But I think that this is a big help to the people, that yes, okay, I thought that this is working this way. Probably not, But then there are other countries, or maybe this country is also good, maybe in a different structure. So all in all, this is why we are giving choices. And then if we could narrow for one or two real ones, then with the pricing, we are helping the client to make the final choice. But at the end, it's the client's choice of which one to choose. But we try to give as much information, reliable, useful information, for them to make a very good decision based on their certain personal situation, circumstances, so that, and that's the beauty of it, so that they would be satisfied and they would refer their friends, their business partners who are also thinking to us, because that's the best way how to grow a business.
Fantastic.
Another reason why to be honest and why to do it this way, I think on a long-term basis, is just the only business strategy which works.
Yeah, indeed. Great, fantastic. Thank you very much for your time, Laszlo. So if you want to get in touch with Laszlo, if you have any questions, there is a link below. You can find out more about these services, and there is also his email in the description below. You can just shoot him an email and you'll get back to them.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.